Hello, I'm going to talk to you about why horse racing should be banned. And this is because horses' bodies aren't fully developed when they're being trained, and they're also given dangerous drugs to sustain, and then later on they're put to death when they can no longer race. This all started in the 1850s in Europe, and this is because this people of the higher class wanted something to feel honor about, so they also would breed the horses that they could breed together to make the best horse they could, because it tested both the horse and the rider. And this was honorable for the rider as well, because they had to train to be the best rider they could be. And this appropriately was called the sport of kings, because it was not only higher class, but it was the royalty of the British society. Back to why it should be banned is because the horses aren't fully developed when people are starting to train them. For example, their skeletal maturity isn't reached until age 4, and the last bones to fuse together is in the spinal cord. As you could notice, that probably be the most important part of the horse's body for the rider, because you're constantly on their back while you're riding them. Also, their emotional maturity isn't reached until age 5 to 7, and this is important because when the horses aren't emotionally stable, when you're asking them complex commands, when you're training them, they can become stressed and develop bad habits. And you definitely don't want that when you have a thoroughbred right off the track and is super energetic after the run. Unfortunately, training starts for these horses about 18 to 20 months, so this is way before when they should be, which is at age 4 when they should be starting to train. They do this because they have to get their horses on the track as soon as possible in order to beat the other horses, because if you have an older horse racing, chances are they're not going to be able to run as fast, whereas these younger ones can because they still have the energy. However, they become injured as time goes on because they're not fully developed, so their bones are softer and everything is just not quite as established as it should be. Not only are the horses not fully developed, but they also are receiving dangerous drugs. This makes the sport no longer honest, which it was in the 1850s. So it's no longer an honorable sport. It's all about money rather than talent. So because it's about money, people will do pretty much anything to make their horses perform the best that they can, which includes legal and illegal drugs. Some legal drugs are butazone and corticosteroids, which are anti-inflammatories, which only mask the pain rather than healing the pain. So the horses will receive these drugs right before a race. That way they don't feel pain and they can run as fast as they can. And then after the race, these drugs wear off and they experience a lot of pain, which is not fair to the animals. Some illegal drugs are, for example, is LASIK, which controls bleeding in the lungs, and this is necessary for races when the horses are running at full speed. Some of the blood can enter the lungs, which this LASIK drug controls bleeding in the lungs and redirects it to the kidneys, which can also not only prevent the blood being in the lungs, but it also covers other illegal drugs, because the blood is moved into the kidneys, which can cover up some of the drugs that would be in the horse's system. Then lastly, the horse can be put to death if they are injured so severely that they cannot heal from that injury, which doesn't always mean just putting them down. It also means selling them in auctions for whatever price they can get, because again, it's about money rather than the horse. And the owners aren't necessarily worried about where the horse is going because they just want some money from the horse since it's no longer able to race for them. So these horses end up in slaughterhouses, which are supposed to, well, they drive the horses for up to like 28 hours, and they don't get any stops for 28 hours, so the horses go without food or water, where they should be stopping every 4 hours so that they can get water or food. But these people don't necessarily care too much about the horse's health because they're selling the horse for meat. However, some of the horses can recover, and they do get put out to pasture for breeding to carry on the legacy of the horse. Unfortunately, it's not always that scenario. So, in conclusion, horse racing should be banned because of the changes that have occurred over the years. These changes have put the animals at risk, which is not fair to them. In the past, this sport was honest, and people truly wanted to have the best horse, but fairly, rather than altering the horse's body to perform at its best. Thank you.